theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated.
I'm super excited!
Enough searching, you will find clip after clip of NASA fails. These people messing up in the middle of what's supposed to be a live feed, because even with the best technology, things screw up.
Many times during spacewalks outside the International Space Station, we can see air bubbles rising up. Can you touch on how there are air bubbles in space?
Can you be more specific? Air bubbles?
So yeah, like a lot of times during the footage, the NASA footage, you can see bubbles coming up out of the helmets or kind of from underneath you. How do you explain bubbles in space?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
We're now watching a brave patriot astronaut enter into the billion-dollar International Space Station, do an experiment to see how this floppy door is protecting astronauts as they're in a vacuum in space. This is where your tax dollars are going, folks. This is what they want you to believe. They faked the moon landing, and they're doing nothing but giving you CGI, green screen, and this kind of bull crap. You wouldn't have this door on your trash can, not to mention on the International Space Station. Guys, wake up. They're deceiving mankind. This is the kind of shit NASA does on a regular basis.
But let me guess, you saw the curvature in the images from satellites. The thousands of magical orbiting aluminum tin cans floating in space. It's all animation and games until one comes crashing down on your squad. Many crashed satellites have been reported the world over, and the one thing they all have in common is giant helium balloons attached to them. Of course, satellite technology is real. We get our weather information, communication equipment, and even some internet service from them. Look up Google Loon, for example. It's not that they wouldn't use the magical floating satellites if they could. It's that they don't physically exist, nor does the globe. They have been sending these up one at a time since it all began. I will allow them to explain it.
He got a patent on that in 1950. And those early balloons were so large, they didn't have any way to launch them, except they actually launched them from aircraft carriers.
Modern scientific ballooning was born. It's also the genesis for NASA's newly developed super pressure balloon.
The reason for super pressure ballooning is they have absolutely stable altitude day, night, and it doesn't matter how cold the atmosphere is. They are sealed.
So your shape is always the same, you always displace the same amount of air, and therefore you have the same amount of buoyancy all the time.
This day-to-night altitude stability allows super pressure balloons and the...
Hi, I'm Matt, and this is NASA Now.
NASA's been using balloons for science research for over 30 years. The exploration that can be done on balloons is continuing to grow. Standard balloon that I fly is about 660 feet long when it's made. So when it's inflated, it's over 400 feet tall by 440 feet wide. Think of a dome stadium. That's how big my balloons are.
So let me get this straight. It is now public knowledge that they send up satellites on massive helium-filled balloons. As you should know, NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world, for obvious reasons. But the issue with society is that they never critically think. Just think for a second here. If these are sent up to provide the world with all of the important information we need, and I'm sure the entire process is expensive and difficult to accomplish, then please explain to me what in the flat world do these pathetic animations do for you? Do they make you happy inside? Are they so super duper cool that you cannot see past the obvious CGI? The fact of the matter is everything NASA sends up on a balloon simply hovers above our motionless Earth. That is why they rarely speak about orbiting satellites, and of course, they never show footage. Here is some footage of a random evening with a man, the moon, and his Nikon P900. Notice anything floating up there?
The International Space Station, or ISS, took many years to become a reality. In 1984, the United States announced a project called Space Station Freedom. Here's some drawings of what the original station might have looked like. It was never actually built in its original form. There were lots of redesigns, and its funding was almost completely cut by U.S. Congress. Then in 1993, after several other countries were brought on board, the name was officially changed to the International Space Station. 5 years later, construction begins in space. I'll show you the complete construction process, but first, let's learn a little bit more about the station. This is the ISS as it looks today. It's mainly used to conduct science experiments that can only be done in space. There's usually 6 astronauts on board the station. They generally switch out about every 6 months so that no one spends too much time in space. The station is about the size of an American football field. It's located just outside the Earth's atmosphere. This is called low Earth orbit. It's not very high. Until a few years ago, when Flat Earth exploded, no one spoke of these satellite balloons. This balloon supposedly went into orbit. Most people I talk to even now about this have never seen these satellite balloons. Now we know what Roswell was. For decades, there has been a deliberate whitewash of these balloon satellites, evincing that they are lying about space satellites. Space satellites aren't necessary when you can accomplish the same with these much cheaper balloon satellites. These high-altitude balloons can carry 8,000 pounds and include telescopes, radar equipment, communications equipment, internet, etc. There's a GoFundMe project. Start the first space hotel held up by weather balloons. This 2-ton balloon satellite, yes, they did call it a satellite, almost killed onlookers. It had cutting-edge NASA telescopes on board. Have you ever heard of a telescope mounted on a high-altitude balloon? I hadn't. Where are the images from these balloon telescopes? Moreover, it is hardly ever mentioned that almost all of our alleged communications come from undersea cables and cell towers.
Making all of these parts, sending them to space and testing them there, okay? Now, you think about this. You got astronauts floating around putting this stuff together. This would be the most filmed event of all time because Mission Control would need to see what's going on. And there's not a single photo or video of it being built. Not one. Okay?
National security?
National security. How about this? Why don't we see any land when we're looking down at the ocean from the space station?
Why? Because you're over top of ocean.
Okay, well, don't you think they could be fooling us with this picture?
Okay, I give you this.
Wait, watch the picture. Watch the picture.
I know that they've airbrushed some stuff.
It's not airbrushed. This is us in our front yard on a solar panel, and we tricked you, showing you how easy. We have zero budget. They have $65 million a day, and I tricked you. What about this? NASA says, these are new planets. Okay. Would you believe? Why would you believe that?
Why wouldn't you?
Because they're frying pans. They're the bottom of frying pans. Again, zero budget, zero.
Here we have the newly released images of Mars. Tell me why, with all the technology we have today, we would send that little hunk of junk up there into space. Do you remember a few years back when NASA released images of Mars, but they got caught filming in the desert? Yeah. And also these meteors, space rocks. There's no craters. You can tell me the wind covered up the crater holes all you want, but how come there's no dirt on top of these rocks?
So, in space, they don't really use cables, right? Because, they're supposed to be just floating in space. Wire harnesses.
There are a couple of zero-gravity tricks, extended periods of time for longer than 45-second segments, but they can't move around as much. They can't do the acrobatic flips and rolls in the extended mode. So there's full motion mode where they can fully move around, and that's faked in a plane, and then there's suspended or extended mode where they're suspended by wires in front of a blue screen.